Welcome to another episode of Elite Professionals in Coaching, or EPIC. My name is Chris Aird, and I am the host of this amazing podcast. I'm also the owner and CEO of With Purpose. I do business and leadership consulting. And it's a pleasure to have you listening or watching if you're doing this through our YouTube channel. I want to share with you that there's a lot going on right now. There's a lot. And it's either personal, it's family, community, political, work related issues, financial challenges or struggles, and everything in between. There's a lot going on right now. And I think people are trying to figure out which way is up, which way is down, which way is left, right, you name it. Again, there's a lot going on. And I really want to take the next few moments. Hopefully, you will interact on our social media page about this. Would love to hear your thoughts, your comments. Make them not only clean, but make them instrumental, make them thought provoking, if you don't mind. But all that to say is there's a lot going on right now. And I'm reminded of a situation that I was involved in pre-COVID. This was a few years ago with a client of mine. I was working with a company that had an owner that was involved and a CEO. And as I was involved in this company, probably 6 weeks into it, I really started to notice something. And that was this: there was conflict between the owner and the CEO. And this really just did take in front of me. We were involved in a business meeting, and the owner had said some things to the CEO, and the CEO responded back. And it was basically this in a general summary: the owner wanted to do one thing, and the CEO wanted to do something else. And as this dialogue unpacked itself right before my very eyes, it was quick. It was quick. I'm sitting there going, okay, thinking, how am I going to resolve this issue? Not only do I need to be the mediator, but probably a little bit of negotiating context in this as well. And what happened was that the owner was talking about how it was her business. The owner talked about how it was her business, and the CEO talked about how she was on the front lines and the owner needed her. The owner had the business, the CEO had the people. So it became very, very quickly an us versus them, or a me versus them mentality. And it was strenuous for a brief moment. And literally, I had both ladies at the table ask them to sit down for a moment because they had raised themselves up and were kind of doing a little bit of a shouting match, although they were keeping it professional. So let's just call it heated, shall we? And so ultimately, I got them both to settle down. I heard each of them out on their story, their interpretation of the facts, asked them to take their emotion, to validate that, and then to actually have a conversation where we were not leaving the table until we had some sort of resolution, and both agreed to that. So let me say this. I was reading a book, a gentleman by the name of Mike Maples Jr., you can read about him, has a statement: ego is about who's right. Ego is about who's right. Truth is about what's right. Let me say this again. Ego is about who is right. Truth is about what's right. Now, all the context of this conversation is about emotion versus facts. And we know about emotion. It's the feelings that we have. It's how we feel when someone does something or says something or presents themselves in a certain way. Facts are, for the most part, undeniable, if you will, especially considering a source. And yet at the same time, I think that you're going to find in this that this is going to be really good as you're listening, because in facts, it's also, I could present facts and someone else might have a different variation or interpretation of facts. So somewhere in the middle, we need to meet and make sure that we both recognize what we're doing, how we're going to do it moving forward. In fact, I heard the statement somewhere down the road. I would love to give the contribution to whomever it was that said it, but a lot of people talk about, let's get us all on the same page. I am a firm believer, and I love doing this for people and businesses. I help people get on reading from the same sentence in the same paragraph. So I'm going to say this again. Mike Maples Jr. said, ego is about who's right. Truth is about what's right. Now, when you take this in the context of a lot of people struggling, I was looking around for some things. And I went to a trusted resource that I like, and that's the Harvard Business Review, hbr.org, if you're looking for it. Again, Harvard Business Review. And I'm going to read this for us. This was just posted a few days ago. And this is about not only the development of your people, your employees, your coworkers, but about the development of an organization. Okay, so here's the quote. Starts right now. While many organizations, especially in the private sector, have traditionally used monetary incentives to boost employee morale and performance, recent research suggests that symbolic awards, interventions such as congratulatory cards, public recognition certificates, can significantly increase intrinsic motivation, performance, and retention rates. That is something that I have known for a very long time. People are not always about the money. And while people are struggling, we are now coming into an era of whether businesses are going to make all their employees come back into the workplace, whether they get to work from home. In fact, Microsoft just put out a couple of days ago, maybe a week ago now, where they were giving people three options. They can stay at home and work, they can come to work full time, or they can have a hybrid. Our school systems today are kind of doing the same thing. There's options, there's choices, and we need to allow our employees, our coworkers, our business to validate those choices. So, um, just as another little quote, as a side note here, I was reading from Leaders Eat Last by Simon Sinek, and here's what he said. Leadership, if you are a leader or you consider yourself a leader, I want you to pay attention. Leadership protects an organization from the internal rivalries that can shatter a culture. Leadership protects an organization from the internal rivalries that can shatter a culture. So I'm back to people are struggling. Um, and in that, I think that there's always a time for everything. Just like you, who hasn't, who has not done some sort of impulse buy? I'd like to know who has not done some sort of impulse buy. You like it, so you see it. You can have it tomorrow through Amazon, so you buy it now. It's on sale here, and you know that you're going to need it in the future. It's an impulse buy versus necessity buys, such as, well, I'd like to use toilet paper, but we know how that became an impulse buy last year. So, how about necessity buyers, such as purchasing deodorant, purchasing food for a party that's going to be 6 weeks out? That's a necessity. Maybe making sure whatever the case that you need, that becomes a necessity buy, right? So what we want to do is I want you to understand that there's a time for everything, especially when we think about emotional versus factual, impulse buying, emotional versus necessity buying, factual. This is something I need versus this is something I want. Now, here's the thing, and in any time for everything, as there is a time for everything, we need to identify, we need to have enough emotional intelligence to be in the moment and to recognize that we need to be easy in that moment should an emotional awareness kick us off to an argument, disgruntled employee, disgruntled coworker, disgruntled client or vendor, or whatever the case might be, for something that is going to heighten the level of our emotion. Um, we need to be reflective. Okay. So, what I'm going to ask you to do is in those times, and you probably already know this, so this just serves as a reminder at the moment, step away. We've heard count to 10, right? And then the joke is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then go at it. That's not the case. Count to 10 means ultimately what you're doing is you're stepping away from the situation. You need to go for a walk around the block, listen to some music that will calm you, whatever the case might be. Maybe reach out to a mentor. I can't tell you how many business calls I've had as a consultant over the past few weeks, maybe even the past year, from clients just needing an ear to listen, not to respond, but to understand the situation, make sure that they're on the same line, the same page, the same sentence as they move forward. It's been my pleasure to serve as that. So it's about stepping away. And when you step away, it's about being reflective. How am I going to approach the situation? What do I need to bring in there? Do I need to bring pen and paper? Do I need to bring a tablet? Do I need to have someone come into my office? Do I need to go for a walk with somebody else? the solutions to this challenge is endless, right? There are so many things that we can do, and yet at the same time, sometimes our emotions get the best of us. And so I'm just asking you to be easy in the moment. Step away for a moment, be reflective, gather your thoughts, gather your emotional intelligence about this, and make sure that whatever you say is going to be not only um, preventative, but also that you're going to steer somebody in the course of a right direction. Now, here's the thing: when we're talking about being preventative and steering someone in the course of in the right direction, I'm talking about communication. And first of all, we need to validate the feelings. We need to validate those feelings because they have an emotional attachment to whatever the situation is going on. And so when we validate those feelings, it's is easy as saying, I understand you're angry. I understand that you are feeling such and such, that you're happy, even, right? Or you can even say, so that you're not coming across assuming, you can even say, so you're coming across to X, Y, and Z. Am I reading you right? Or you can offer the opportunity to ask the question and let them define what they're feeling, having them sit down and say, okay, you seem to be pretty emotional about this. What kind of emotions are you feeling? Right? We need to validate those feelings. Once we do that for the individual, then we can work out the situation. We can work out the challenge. We can work out the problem. Okay. So when we do this, we validate those feelings. We understand them. We now know where we're at. We've probably even de escalated a little bit. We've calmed them down. And now we can get to the root of whatever is going on. You know, um, I'm reminded, being a dad of four, that there's, first of all, a difference between disciplining and punishment. All right. I hope you do as well. But when we're disciplining a child, we can show elements of emotion depending on their age, their maturity level, maybe even the type of situation, and the list goes on, right? That's when we're disciplining. We can show a little bit of that emotion. They can see sad, they can see whatever. When we're punishing a child, we need to keep the emotion out of it. I grew up in an era where I got spanked. And I remember hearing from my dad that did his very best, and I would give him credit, he did, to keep the emotion out of it when I was getting spanked. Why? Because the emotion overrides in the area of punishment. So in discipline and punishment, two different things. In discipline, we can show a little bit of emotion. We need to make sure that it's bridled. Punishment, it is just absolute fact. I'm giving you, well, this is how it was said to me. I'm giving you three swats on the butt for what you've done, and then I'm going to walk away. And you're going to sit in your room and you're going to think about it. Or punishment, I'm grounded for X amount of time and I'm supposed to be thinking about it, right? Or the car is taken away from me. And during that time that I would be driving, I'm supposed to do whatever. Emotion is taken out of it, out of punishment. Discipline, it can be added. I hope that makes sense. So, with that being said, when we think about validating those feelings and we think about emotion versus fact, we need to, there is an emotional attachment to facts. We need to recognize this. We're seeing this in our world today, in our country especially. There's a lot of facts being thrown out there, and there's emotional attachment to that. And it's up to us as the individual to sift through those emotions to get to the root of why we feel that way. At the same time, we get to help others do the same thing: our neighbors, our family, our children, our spouses, parents, whomever. And so there we get to go through that attachment of emotion that's to the fact. And then kind of take a look at it and go, well, why does the fact make me feel this way? And so I'm going to stop there because I don't want to get political. I don't want to get into economics or finances or anything else like that. So I want to draw the line there. I'd be happy to have a off podcast conversation with you about that. So here's the other thing I want to say to you: as a leader, there is a balance. There's a balance between the two, emotion and fact. So as people, we have personalities, right? We know what makes us tick. We have our passion, our purpose. We have our vision, our mission, all that as a business. But sometimes our personality doesn't necessarily mesh or match up to the work environment that we're in. Here's a few examples. Number one, uh, maybe someone likes to cut jokes or crack jokes, right? And the humor is okay for a certain few, but doesn't sit right with other people. Okay, now you know where I'm headed with this. So, as a leader, there's a balance. Humor doesn't sit right with everybody. Um, maybe there's cliques in your church, in your business, in your family, whatever the case might be. So, again, as a leader, there are balances. Physical abilities are challenged. There's a balance to that. And so there's so many more different things that could be added to this list. But what I'm saying to you is if we're going to get to the root of all of these different things that are going on, those emotions are attached. They're married sometimes to the facts. And not that we remove them to get to the facts, but we have to work with or work through those emotions to get to the facts, and vice versa. Sometimes we have to work through the facts, work with the facts to get to the emotion, right? So there's a balance. Just I was thinking about something as well. When I was thinking about the emotional facts, because it's about asking the right questions to get to the heart of the matter. If something is bothering me, for me as a person, I would like for people to ask me questions. Don't ask me the superfluous, how are you? Because most often people are going to give you, I'm good. Ask me a specific question about what you want to know about. In fact, I'm asked this question all the time in networking events. So tell me a little bit about yourself. My very quick response is, what would you like to know? I don't want to bore them with details that they're not going to be interested in. What would you like to know? Are you interested in my upbringing? Are you interested in how I was developed as a leader? Are you interested in how I got to become my own business owner? Are you interested in whatever the case might be, right? So let's have some of the pleasantries, that's fine, but then let's get into what you really want to know. And so it's about asking the right questions so that you get to the response that you're not necessarily looking for, but the answer to those questions. So we want to ask the right questions, not only as a business owner, but as a leader, as a department head, a manager, spouse, whatever the case might be. Ask the right questions. There was a time a while ago that I had put in for some vacation, and I had sent it off to my boss, and I had expected a response within a week. That was just typically what he did. And a week later, no response. So I sent off another email and just said, hey, just following up to my previous email and looking for vacation time. A week later, no response. We're at 2 weeks now. So I decided that I've got this little chain, this thread of communication happening. I'll follow up with the email and then I'll make a phone call, because all of a sudden now we're kind of in the moment where we could probably start paying a little bit more for the hotel cost or airfare or whatever the case might have been. I don't remember. And so the third time I followed up with the email, followed up with a phone call as well. Still did not get a response. Well, 2 weeks later, of course, time goes by, right? We get busy or preoccupied with other things. I'm actually at a meeting with him, and I went over to him and I said, sir, do you have a brief moment? He said, sure. What's up, Chris? I have sent you 3 emails and a phone call. You have not responded to my vacation request. Did you even see it? Because it hasn't bounced back to me. Do you ever see? Oh, yeah. I'll get that. I'll get my secretary to do it. I'm sorry, blah, 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 blah. Well, here's the thing. The emotional fact is that I started to get a little frustrated. At the same time, I tried to reason with myself and justify why I wasn't receiving something in my time that I thought should have been sent back to me. So I was trying to create excuses and or justification, however you want to look at it. And so that's where I kept following up. I exercised a little bit more amount of patience, whatever the case might be. But this is what I'm talking about. I think there's a thing called emotional facts. Emotional facts. I think that's something that we're seeing today. I'm not saying I'm coining the phrase or penning the phrase. I'm just saying I believe in this, and it's called emotional facts. And it's something that people is a fact, and they put their emotion attached to it, and then that's how they move forward. So let me say it this way. Can you have a yin and a yang? Can you have emotion versus facts? Well, yeah, I think people make decisions based out of emotion. For me, not so much. I try to make or base my decision making off of facts. I think there's some elements of emotion, especially if I'm working with people on it or whatever the case might be. I need to make sure that everybody involved is going to have some sort of buy-in. I'm good with that. Um, and sometimes it's not an emotion versus, it's not a team v team type of play or a player versus player. That's not at all, I think sometimes can happen as well. So let me just wrap this up. I think you can have both. And by having both, I think that you validate the emotions. You also have to identify the facts and make sure that people are really truly bringing the facts the way that they want them to be brought, as well as the emotional. What stirs up in that, and then move forward with them. And then I think there's also, I believe in a thing called emotional facts. So here's a couple action steps for us today. Let's validate people. Let's validate them. Let's validate their emotions because everyone's fighting something that we can see. Everyone's fighting something that we can't. And a lot of it is emotional. A lot of it is baggage that we choose to hold on to. A lot of it is things that are happening behind the scenes, especially at work, or maybe an underlying with a coworker or whatever. Something rubbed somebody the wrong way based upon what was said, whatever the case might be. So let's validate people and their emotions, but let's also make sure that they are seeing the facts for what that is. And that's up to us as the leaders. Let's also get to the root issue by sifting through the symptoms. If I start sneezing and coughing, symptoms would tell me that I have a cold. So I'm not going to treat the symptoms. I want to treat the root. I want to treat the cold. Um, if you've been listening or if you've known me for any amount of time, I don't have a fear of spiders. I just dislike spiders. Now, if I want to get to the spider, I've got to kill a spider or pick it up in a garbage or a oh my gosh, I just lost it. A pan, a broom and a dustpan, put it outside, right? Now, if I want to deal with the spider and I see the web, I'm not going to get rid of the web thinking that I've gotten rid of the spider. We know that's not the case. So why do we think that that's happening with our people that are around us? Let's think about it, right? If I want to remove the spider, I'm not going to just remove the web. Therefore, it can't be done with people. People are even more complicated than that, more complex. So we want to get to the root of the issue, not by dealing with the symptoms. We can sift through all of those, we can identify those symptoms, but let's get to the root. And then thirdly, I started off by talking about the research that HBR, Harvard Business Review, has done. I want to say this: value your people, find ways to value them. It's not always going to be monetarily. Maybe it's a card. Maybe it's a thank you note. Maybe it's a quick email to everybody that talks about how well that individual or that department did or that team did. Let's show people that we value them and we validate them in a very, very positive way. Well, I want to say thank you very much for listening again to another episode of Epic Elite Professionals in Coaching. My name is Chris, and it's been a pleasure to have you listen and to serve you in this way. Would love some comments from you that are back. Hopefully, they're encouraging. And as you are done listening, I just want to encourage you with one last thing, and that's something that I always say, and that's live with purpose.